Okay. Hi, everybody. So thanks for coming for my talk. So I'm Thang Hoang. So today I will present my paper titled S3ORAM, a computation-efficient and constant client bandwidth blow-up ORAM with shared secret sharing. So this work is the joint work between me, my colleague Jae Hoon, Tom Nguyen, my advisor Attila Yavu, and my mentor Dr. Jorge Guajardo from Robert Bosch. So first, I would like to give an introduction about ORAM. So the concept of ORAM was defined to allow the client to physically access the data on the cloud without leaking the logical access pattern to the cloud provider. So let's take a look on this example. So assuming that the client wants to read or write to some kind of data service on the cloud. So ORAM protocol will transform the logical read or write to the physical read and write such that any physical read and write cannot reveal the access pattern, the logical access pattern to the cloud provider. And we have some kind of ORAM application, so it can be used to a cloud storage as a service, including the standard storage, or you can use ORAM to query the health record database, or even we can use with the data management, the password management. And ORAM can be also to be used in some kind of specific context, such as searchable encryption or the secure multi-party computation to hide the access pattern between parties. So first, I would like to talk about the progress on ORAM. So the concept of ORAM was first introduced by Gondrik in the context of software protection. A number of progress have been made to increase the efficiency of the ORAM. So let's start in the 1987. So Gondrik proposed the first solution of ORAM, which is called a square root ORAM. And this ORAM earned its name because it features the O square root and communication overhead. And in 1996, so Gondrik and Ostrowski improved the efficiency of ORAM by introducing the hierarchical ORAM. So this ORAM featured the O log 3 and communication overhead. And they also established the lower bound of ORAM, which is omega log n. And after this 10 years, so Stefano proposed a partition ORAM in NDSS. So this is breakthrough because it's achieved the O log n communication. But the problem with this is it also requires the O square root and client storage. And she had on in ACR script, so she proposed the three ORAMs, so which follow the three paradigm. And the advantage of this is it's achieved the O log n communication and O1 client storage. And in 2013, so the breakthrough also coming out, so it's the scheme is part ORAM, which was published in CCS. So, and this features the O log n communication under O lambda client storage, where lambda is a security parameter. However, so due to the lower communication overhead, so ORAM was thought to be very costly to be used in practice. And there's a lot of progress trying to increase the efficiency of ORAM since then. And they try to break the Gondrik lower bound by using some kind of additively homomorphic encryption and PIR. For example, in 2014, so we have part PIR in the NDSS, but this one cannot surpass the Gondrik lower bound. It still features O log n communication. Or in 2015, we have circuit ORAM, or SPIR, or C-ORAM. And the C-ORAM even is claimed to achieve big O1, but it has been shown by two recent attacks in PKC. And also in this paper, so in ORAM and PIR, in PKC, they also established the lower bound for any combination between ORAM and PIR. However, so we have some kind of candidate of ORAM that can achieve the big O1 bandwidth blowup. So the technique they use is fully or additively homomorphic encryption, or they switch to distributed setting. So for example, we have the multi-cloud of PV store published in CCS, which achieve big O1 client overhead. However, the storage required in this one is O square root n because its underlying ORAM structure is partition ORAM. And in 2014, so we have another ORAM scheme relies on fully homomorphic encryption or bucket ORAM. In 2016, so we have the onion ORAM, which use additively homomorphic encryption. So from our observation, so onion ORAM is the most optimal one in terms of asymptotic cost. So it achieved the big O1 bandwidth blowup and big O1 clock appliance storage without using some kind of costly homomorphic encryption. However, so this is still very costly to be used in practice because it relies on additive homomorphic encryption and it incurs a high delay due to some kind of public key cryptography operation. And another disadvantage of onion ORAM is it also accumulates an onion layer of encryption when we perform the eviction. So this one will result in the increase of the encryption and decryption costs at both client and server side. So the question is, can we have a more efficient ORAM with optimal asymptotic complexity like onion ORAM or not? So in this paper, so we introduce S3ORAM, and the intuition of our scheme is we will inspire from the onion ORAM, but we exploit some kind of efficiency of multi-party computation in the distributed setting. That means so we will switch the single server setting, ORAM, to the distributed setting. And we exploit some kind of homomorphic property of Shamir secret sharing to do some kind of computation during the retrieval and eviction phase. So any public key cryptography or additively homomorphic encryption will be transformed to additively homomorphic encryption of Shamir secret sharing. And this will offer several order of magnitudes time faster. And the second protocol that we will use is the secure multiplication protocol. So this will allow us to do the eviction better. So the problem of onion layer of additively homomorphic encryption can be solved by using the SMP protocol, and it will offer just one layer of Shamir secret share to the data that we store on the cloud. And our system model will require L, which is larger than or equal to 3 plus 1 servers. And we assume that the number of colluding servers will be less than or equal to T, which is some kind of formal definition and requirement in the distributed setting. And in this paper, so we assume that all of the servers are in the semi-honest. And here's some desirable property of S3ORAM. So S3ORAM will offer the low client-server communication because it's filter big O1 bandwidth blowup with a very small block size. And the second advantage is it incurs a low server computation. So basically, the server only performs some kind of modular addition or multiplication over the Shamir secret shares. And as a result, so the client computation is also very low too. Because in order to decrypt or reconstruct the share, so we just incur some kind of modular addition and multiplication. And on-trace property result in S3ORAM to have some kind of low end-to-end delay, like we will show in the experiment. And another advantage is it also requires a very small amount of client storage because it filters the big O1 block of client storage from onion ORAM. And the server storage blowup is also very small too because we don't have the ciphertext expansion due to the additively homomorphic encryption in this case. And another important filter of S3ORAM is this one is the first to achieve the information theoretics ORAM. So let's go to the S3ORAM data structure. So in this S3ORAM, we follow the 3-ORAM paradigm by C in Asia Crypt 2013. So assuming that we have the ORAM structure like this, so we put each block to the bucket with the tree with the random path ID, similar to the 3-ORAM, any 3-ORAM scheme. And we store the path ID and an addition information about the exact location in the path of each block in the position map. And in this case, so we store the position map at the client side. And we fill all the blocks with 0 or dummy data. And here's the structure of S3ORAM. So for each slot in each pocket of the tree, so we will split the data inside occasions where CI is an element in the finite field. Because the block size may be larger than the size of the finite field, so we have to split it into multiple chunks and apply the Shamir secret sharing to each chunk. So after that, we obtain the L shares like this, and we apply the Shamir secret sharing for every single chunk. And then we form the L share data in the S3ORAM structure. And finally, we also the S3ORAM tree to the L servers. So for the S3ORAM access protocol, so we are very similar to Onion ORAM. So for each S3ORAM access, we have three main steps. First, we read the block from the path and assign it to a random path, like this. So we assign to path 15, for example, and then we write the retrieve block to the empty slot in the root bucket. And then we perform the triplet eviction after each access to push down the block from top level to the from the bottom level. So for retrieval subroutine, so we will leverage some kind of symmetric share PR protocol to do the retrieval. So here's the example. For example, I want to read this block. So the client will get the path ID and the location of the block from the position map. For example, we have block ID 2, which has the path ID 10 and location 6 like this. And we create a select vector according to the block location. And you can see that we have number 1, so which is the location of the block in the path. And after that, so we create a share for the vector with symmetric sharing. And we also we send the share vector to and the path ID to each servers. And note that the share of the vector is also a vector whose components are actually the share of each component in the vector that we share. So on the server side, so when the server receives the path ID and the share vector, so the server will perform the PR retrieval on the data along the path. So to do the PR retrieval in this case, so he just performed the dot product actually between the share vector and the vector containing the chunks in the path. So assuming that we have these situations, so you can see that I take the first chunk in the path and dot product with the share vector. And I do it for every single chunks. And I send the server will send the result to the client. And in the client case, so it's just after receiving the replies from at least 2 T+1 server, so the client just applying a Lorentz interpolation to reconstruct the block. So after the block is retrieved, so we update the block and create a new share for it, and we write to an empty slot in the root node of the S3ORAM tree. So for example, we have the retrieve block B like this, so we update B with B prime, and then we split into K chunks, exactly same like when we set up the S3ORAM data structure. And we write the new share to the slot in the root bucket. So for eviction subroutine, so after we perform a successive retrieval, so the client will invoke the eviction protocol to push down the block from the top to bottom. The S3ORAM will harness the triplet eviction in Onion ORAM, and beside that, so S3ORAM also leverage the SMP protocol, which is a secure multi-party multiplication to maintain the number of share layers in the block to be 1. And the eviction path will be deterministic and follow the reserved lexicographic order, which is calculated by this formula. And here's an example of how the eviction path is used. For example, in the first time, I will take this eviction path. The second time will be this. Third time will be this, and the final time will be this. And for triplet eviction, so there are 3 buckets relevant for each operation, so which is called a source, sibling, and destination. And we perform push down for in each level. So for eviction subroutine, so because the sibling bucket is empty because of the previous eviction, so we just simply copy it from the data from source bucket to the sibling bucket. And to perform the source push down operation between the source bucket and destination bucket, so we will perform by using the oblivious permutation with the matrix product. So assuming that I have the bucket with the data B and E in this position like this, and I want to move B to this block, to be sort actually. So I will create a matrix I, so which has 1 component here, and I perform the matrix products between the source and destination bucket with I. So you can see that the rule to create the matrix I in this case is we set ij equal to 1 if we want to move the block from location I to j. And we set I plus j and I to 1 if we want to keep the block location in destination bucket remain the same. And note that, so in order to hide the information that which block is moved to which location obviously, so we need to create a share for the matrix I. So and the matrix product in this case will result in a new cells, which is 2t in this case. So that's why we need to apply the SMP protocol to reduce the degree of the polynomial from 2t to t. And each server will just update this one with the current data in his S3ORAM structure. So in the S3ORAM security, so we say that S3ORAM is secure, is unconditionally secure according to the definition of the ORAM in distributed setting. So we refer the analysis and the proof to the paper. And here's the experiment configuration. So actually, we fully implement the S3ORAM by using two external libraries. The first one is subNTL library, version 9.10, for basic arithmetic operation. And the second library we use is S3ORAM to program the socket communication between client and servers. And for the hardware, so we use two kinds of different clients. The first type of client is we experiment the S3ORAM on the laptop with the Intel Core i5 like this. And the second client that we also experiment with is we try to benchmark the performance of S3ORAM on the mobile client setting. So in this case, we use Google Nexus 6P phone as a client. And for the server, so we test S3ORAM by using 3 Amazon EC2 instances and with the instance type of C4./ And this will offer around 16 CPU cores. And for the network, so we set up the network between client and server to be very realistic, so which results in 29 downloading throughput and 5 megabit per second uploading throughput. And for the mobile settings, so we use LTE network, which also offer the very similar network throughput as in the laptop case. And for the server communication, so because Amazon EC2, so we set up Amazon EC2 into different regions. So one is from Oregon and the other in Virginia, and it results in the server communication to be around 250 megabit per second. And for the database being tested, so we randomly generate a random data of size 40 gig. And we test S3ORAM with various block size ranging from 64 kilobyte to approximately 1 megabyte. Specifically, it is 768 kilobyte. And here's the result. So you can see that this is the performance of S3ORAM. So S3ORAM is around 10,000 times faster than Onion ORAM by getting rid of additively homomorphic encryption. And this is also 5 and 8 times faster than Ring and Path ORAM, respectively. And here's the cost breakdown. So if we investigate what kind of factors that influence on the performance of S3ORAM, and you can see that the server computation only costs a very small amount of delay. And the second factor that dominates, that can also impact the end-to-end delay is the communication time to transfer the query and matrix. So by query, I mean the select query, and matrix means the matrix used to perform the eviction. And most of the time was used to transfer 256 kilobyte of block. So the client has to download one block and also upload that block to the server again. And in this case, so we have 3 servers, so the total amount that we need to, the client need to transfer to the server is around 1 megabyte. And interestingly, so we found out that the server input and output is also very high in S3ORAM. And there are 2 reasons to explain this. The first reason is that for the EC2, Amazon instance that we set up. So it only offers us a very limited I/O throughput of around 150 megabytes per second. And the second factor that influence to the server input output is because of we set the block size to be large like this. So we can improve the performance of the S3ORAM by using a better I/O device. For example, if we have the local SSD, so the server I/O will be increased, will be reduced. And for the server and server communication, you can see that it's also the cost is also very small. So because we only perform the eviction after 8 times. So A in this case we set to be around 300 times. So the server communication actually in this case is amortized. And here's the experiment result for testing S3ORAM on the mobile net and on the mobile with LTE network setting. And you can see that there's not so much different in terms of performance between S3ORAM in this setting and the client setting. But in this case, you can see that the client computation can cause a small amount of delay. It is due to the fact that in this setting, so we have the client computation resource to be limited. So comparing with the laptop setting, so you can see that the client computation also causes a small amount of the delay. You can see. So we conduct another experiment to showcase the performance of S3ORAM and the other ORAM scheme with varying block size. And you can see that when we test the performance of ORAM scheme with the block size ranging from 4 to 768 kilobytes, you can see that S3ORAM always perform around 5 to 8 times faster than path and ring ORAM. In this case, well, we exclude Ionian ORAM because its delay is too far from the y-axis in this case. And also, we test the performance of S3ORAM with varying network throughput. So you can see that because ring ORAM and path ORAM has the O-log-N communication overhead, so it will receive a lot of benefit if we have the much higher network throughput. And you can see that after 110 megabit per second, the performance of ring ORAM will be faster than S3ORAM. And with 240 megabit per second, so path ORAM will outperform S3ORAM. But we found out that in this case, so we need to have the very high network throughput, which cannot be available in many cases. And here's the summary. So this is a high-level comparison between S3ORAM and some of state-of-the-art ORAMs. So you can see that S3ORAM features O1, client-server bandwidth blow-up, but the server has to communicate and to transfer around O-log-N blocks. For the server computation, so path ORAM does not require any computation. In S3ORAM and other ORAM schemes, so we require some kind of operation. However, so in S3ORAM, so we only perform some kind of modular addition and multiplication of Shamir secret shares, so it's much faster than Onion ORAM. And for the client block storage, so S3ORAM features a big O1 block of client storage, similar to Onion ORAM, and it's better than ring or path ORAM. And for the end-to-end delay, so S3ORAM also incur a very small amount of delay. And in the distributed setting, so S3ORAM require at least 3 servers, and all 3 servers are semi-honest, comparing with 1 server between other ORAM scheme. So here's my conclusion. So in this paper, so we introduce S3ORAM, so an efficient distributed ORAM filtering some kind of optimal asymptotic cost. And for the next consideration, we will try to deal with the malicious setting where the server can maliciously input some corrupt data, and how to generalize the S3ORAM with canary structure. Okay, then that's my talk. So thank you for your attention, and happy Halloween to everybody. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask.
Oh, Hi, Travis Mayberry from the U.S. Naval Academy. I was curious for your eviction, how do you avoid having to make basically a lot of position map accesses? Because if additionally storing the exact location of each block in the position map, does that not mean you would have to update like a huge number of things every time you do an eviction?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So actually, in this paper, so we assume that the position map is stored locally on the client side. So as you said that we need to perform the lookup on the position map on all of the blocks
Oh, okay.
residing on the path and update it.
Okay, so that's compared to the other works. So you can't. Oh, okay, so if you did store it on the server, it would be a much higher communication complexity then.
Yep.
Okay.
So that is recursive ORAM. So
Yeah.
actually, S3ORAM can achieve the recursive one.
Okay.
So I put the detail on the paper.
Oh,
So
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
thanks.
I'm Feifei from University of Utah. So very nice work and a very nice talk. So your talk is very detail-oriented, procedure-oriented. I wonder if you can give a really quick high-level summary behind the design, the intuition behind the design to reduce the communication cost.
So the intuition that we can reduce the communication, so is that, so you can see that in Onion ORAM, so it achieves big O1 kind of storage by performing some kind of additively homomorphic encryption. In other words, so it performs some kind of PR operation.
Using this.
So in this case, so we perform the PR operation in a more efficient way by switching to the distributed setting.
Okay.
So in this case, so in S3ORAM, so we have two operations, retrieval and eviction. So retrieval, in this case, we just download and upload one block. And for retrieval, for the eviction operation, the client only sends some kind of matrix data structure to let the server perform some kind of computation. So we don't download any blocks during the eviction operation. That's why S3ORAM feels a big O1 communication overhead.
The other question is really quick. Is in your experiment you compare against path ORAM, right? Have you guys considered alternatives such as recursive path ORAM and other techniques?
Can you say again?
Recursive path ORAM, for example.
So for this one, so when I compare with path ORAM, so we compare the non-recursive version between S3ORAM and path ORAM. So actually, S3ORAM can be transformed to recursive S3ORAM too. But in this case, we will incur log-on communication overhead.
Okay.
So it is costly.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.